No, I don't want to share that. Yeah, yeah. Yashoda. So we'll just say the prayers first. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajata Sahagana Raghunathantitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Vishakhamitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyayeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam, pangum langayate girim, yat kripatamaham vande, Shri Guru Dinatarinam, Paramananda Madhavam, Shri Chaitanya Isharam. So we're reading from Canto 3, chapter number 30, verse number 15, right? Yes. 15. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Aste Vamatyo Panyastam. Aste Vapanyo. Aste Vamatyo Panyastam. Grihapala Ivaharan. Grihapala Ivaharan. Amayavi Apradiptagnir. Amayavi Apradiptagnir. अल्पाहारो अल्पचेष्टितः So just go it's starting. Aste, he remains. Avamatya, negligently. Upanyastam, what is placed. Grihapalaha, a dog. Iva, like. Aharan, eating. Amayavi, diseased. Apradipa Agni, having dyspepsia. Alpa, little. Ahara, eating. Alpa, little. Cheshtitaha, his activity. Translation, thus he remains at home just like a pet dog and eats whatever is so negligently given to him. Afflicted with many illnesses such as dyspepsia and loss of appetite, he eats only very small morsels of food and he becomes an invalid who cannot work anymore. Translation purport by His Divine Grace Srila Bhai Charanarvinda Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Before meeting death, one is sure to become a diseased invalid, and when he is neglected by his family members, his life becomes less than a dog's because he is put into so many miserable conditions. The Vedic literatures, the Vedic literatures therefore enjoin that before the arrival of such miserable conditions, one should leave home and die without the knowledge of his family members. If a man leaves home and dies without his family knowing, that is considered to be a glorious death. But an attached family man wants his family members to carry him in a great procession even after his death. And although he will not be able to see how the procession goes, he still desires that his body be taken gorgeously in procession. Thus, he is happy without even knowing where he has to go when he leaves his body for the next life. So we can switch this off the ways. ओम ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. So, thus he remains at home just like a pet dog and eats whatever is so negligently given to him. Afflicted with many illnesses such as dyspepsia and loss of appetite, he eats only very small morsels of food, and he becomes an invalid who cannot work anymore.
Dyspepsia is what? Dyspepsia? I think unable to eat.
Yeah.
Huh?
Unable to eat.
As of dyspepsia. You don't have any appetite or you don't have any
energy.
Don't want to eat. That's not dyspepsia.
Indigestion. So this is indigestion.
Oh, indigestion.
Chronic indigestion.
खाने के बाद भी पचता नहीं.
So, completely unqualified to speak on this verse. Not qualified to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is actually a very serious verse, and it's a reality. So before starting, I like to take the blessings of His Grace Prabhu and all the assembled devotees. So the last few verses, as yesterday Sri Gopal Prabhu very nicely enumerated, that is speaking about the end of life. So the goal of our Krishna consciousness is to prepare ourselves for going to the spiritual world. And yesterday I was reflecting that when the goal is very clear, and the goal is not just clear, but it's vividly, distinctively, expansively clear, then only will we have the determination to pursue the means to attain that goal. So if the goal is not very, very clear, it's very difficult to pursue, and the goal has to be very clear with our intelligence also. It's not just important to know that we have to go back to the spiritual world, but it's very important to know what we want to do there and what are the potencies of the Lord that actually work in the spiritual sky. So that's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Janma Karma Chame Divyam Evam Yo Veti Tattvataha. So to know Krishna in Tattvataha, which also means to know the different tattvas in Krishna consciousness, like Jiva Tattva, Guru Tattva, Krishna Tattva, etc., to know them properly. And of course, it's all given in Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's very important to know all these tattvas scientifically, hear them from a self-realized soul. So unless we study Krishna's energy, we cannot understand Krishna. We cannot appreciate Krishna. We cannot put full unflinching faith in Krishna. And that is why Srila Prabhupada said that the first 9 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam is extremely important to understand the potencies. Achintya Guna Swarupa. So, how Krishna's personality is decorated with so many wonderful potencies. So, by understanding Krishna in scientifically, and by understanding the qualities of Krishna, this is also extremely important. The transcendental qualities, Shri Radha, Gopi Janalabda, Hari Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. By understanding the transcendental qualities of Krishna and of his divine consort and of his associates, then that attracts us to make the endeavor to attain his lotus feet. So, of course, there are 2 ways we can become motivated to be Krishna conscious, or 3 ways you can say: out of fear, out of duty, and out of love. So, out of fear, becoming motivated to serve Krishna out of fear is okay, but it doesn't really give pleasure to Krishna. And just like that's the example of the the devatas. When they worship Krishna out of fear. They worship Krishna because they need something from Krishna. If they don't worship Krishna, they know that their power will go down, so that's out of fear. Then out of duty, is the devotees, like who, like I myself am very fallen, but devotees who are striving to develop love for Lord, but they have not yet achieved that position. Therefore, they're following the rules and regulations very strictly. So that's out of duty. And then finally, when Krishna's pleasure potency, and especially Krishna's Kripa Murti, that is the spiritual master, the mercy potency of the Supreme Lord, and that potency enters the heart and illuminates the heart, then one can actually practice devotional service with a out of love. So it's not completely duty in the stage of devotional service and practice. It's not completely duty and it's not completely love. It's mixed. So there is some duty and there is little love also. There is little attraction. You can say love is a big word, but little attraction. So we should be motivated by the examples of great devotees of the Supreme Lord, and be inspired by their example and follow in their footsteps. Because this situation of death coming, etc., etc., old age, death, disease, I mean, this is a fact, this is a reality. It can come anytime practically. But just meditating on those things again and again and again is kind of a negative approach. But the positive approach is to meditate on the loving exchange between Krishna and Krishna's pure devotees. So there are many pure devotees of the Lord, and ultimately Srimad Bhagavatam, the crest jewel of all the pure devotees of the Lord, are the residents of Vrindavan. They are the crest jewel, or the most exalted, the most intimate of all the pure devotees of the Lord. But at the same time, all the different avatars, all the different devotees the incarnations of the Lord also personify a fragment of the love and the intimacy of the devotees in Golok Vrindavan, Golok Navadvip. So it's very, very inspiring to actually study Bhagavatam from that light, that ultimately the goal of studying all the different aspects of Srimad Bhagavatam, the goal is to become a devotee of Krishna in Vrindavan. So, when we study, like for example, Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruva Maharaj, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to hear their pastimes, how they practiced devotional service, the different difficulties they went through, many, many, many times. Why is it that Mahaprabhu? Because um, love in separation, devotion in separation is much stronger than devotional service when the object of devotion, that is Krishna, is there. And so they both Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj was persecuted, was abused in so many ways by Hiranyakashipu and his different agents. But even despite such persecution, Prahlad Maharaj devotion to the lotus feet of Lord Nrsimhadev was not at all deterred. So seeing that, Mahaprabhu would become inspired to become more and more and more devoted to the lotus feet of Krishna. And Dhruva Maharaj, his severe austerities, although he's such a small boy, his extreme eagerness to achieve the lotus feet of the Lord. Because Dhruva Maharaj, if you see from a material perspective, he had no association. He had nothing basically. Didn't have a strong body, he didn't have association, he had no environment. Of course, the forest is there, but if someone gives a forest to you and says, well, just stay here, and what do I do? Well, practice devotional service and attain perfection. Okay, where is the Bhagavatam? Where is the chanting beads? Where is I want some deities, I want some prasadam, place to sleep. Sorry, Prabhu, I'm not going to give you anything. You just have to stay in this forest. Wild animals will come and eat you up. Yeah, well, this is the forest. So that was the situation with Dhruva Maharaj was. He attained perfection. So that shows that how that even in such a situation it's possible to attain perfection. So these two examples, Mahaprabhu would hear again and again and again. So actually, there is a scientific principle that our situation, our material situation, can be compared to negative. Like there are two poles, positive and negative, North Pole, South Pole. So the more and more we go in the negative direction, the more and more we attract the mercy of the positive. So pure devotees say that the more and more you become the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, means that your faith in the ultimate authority is greater and greater and greater. So suppose there is a person who is sitting at the top, and he has the first level of servants. If you serve the first level, that means you have faith in the first level of servants and the master. If you serve the second level, means you have faith in the second level, the first level, and the master. If you serve the third level of servants, you have faith in the third level, second level, first level, and the master. So like this, the more and more you go down and down and down, means your faith becomes more and more and more solid. So Mahaprabhu, that's why he said, Dasa, 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 Dasanu, Dasa. So the more and more one becomes a servant of the servant of the servant, then he has more and more and more guardians, more and more well-wishers who can actually take him to the lotus feet of the Lord. So that is the great inspirational, positive aspect of Krishna consciousness. So the more and more we can put faith in devotees. So the whole purpose of our devotional life is to simply put faith in devotees of the Lord. That's why we actually worship the Lord ultimately, because in the ultimate understanding, we have to worship devotees. That's our ultimate perfection. Shuddha Bhakata Charana Renu Bhajana Anuku. Bhakata Seva Parama Siddhi. Prema Latikara Mool. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying that Bhakata Seva, service to the devotees, is Parama Siddhi, not ordinary Siddhi, but Parama Siddhi. So it's very, very powerful. So initially, we come to the Lord, we come to the lotus feet of Radha Gopijana Vallabh, and we see how the aarti is offered, and etc. Different rules and regulations which are very important. The goal of those rules and regulations is to ultimately help us to worship the devotees. Devotees are actually the real, you can say, Kripa Patra. They are the real uh, agents of Krishna's mercy. So the more and more we can develop this mentality towards the devotees are actually agents of Krishna's mercy, more and more we can gain attraction to the Lord. Like there may be a person, like best example is Ishwar Puri. Ishwar Puri, the last days of Madhavendra Puri, the last and towards the end of his pastimes in this world, Ishwar Puri was so diligently, so carefully, and so lovingly serving his spiritual master. He was cleaning his bed, he was doing so many menial services. By doing those menial services, Krishna became so attracted to him. Of course, we understand that Ishwar Puri is a eternal associate of the Lord. Otherwise, how did he perform so many wonderful pastimes? But by his shining example, we can understand that how by serving the devotees, one actually attains attraction to the Lord. So one can see the Lord, one can see the form of the Lord, but the real objective is to become attracted, is to become dedicated, is to become surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord. So that mood can only be obtained by the mercy of the devotees. So that is Mahaprabhu's primary mission. Mahaprabhu's pastimes, the primary aspect of Mahaprabhu's pastimes is his relation with his devotees. And to teach what it really means to live in a community of devotees and what it really means to be Krishna conscious in the community of devotees. Like in Chaitanya Charitamrita, so many wonderful examples are there, beginning with all the angas of bhakti. The other day we were speaking about Maharaj Ambarish, that how he performed all the 9 aspects of devotional service. So, like, I'll just try to take all of them and see how Mahaprabhu's pastimes actually really exemplify devotional service. So first is to speak about hearing. So we know that how much Mahaprabhu used to hear the pastimes of Prahlad and Dhruva hundreds and hundreds of times, to hear so many times. And he would make Gadadhar Pandit read again and again and again, so much so that Gadadhar Pandit, by reading for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, tears would stream from his eyes and the manuscript would become completely, it would become, the letters would, what is it? Disfigured. Bhagavatam itself will become disfigured. So Mahaprabhu had such eagerness to hear, and Mahaprabhu would constantly hear from Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar. If even one day they would not come to Gambhira, Mahaprabhu would bitterly lament. He would lament so much. Already Mahaprabhu would be scratching his face against the walls and crying and so many things. And if they would not come, then this would reach another level. So there's a hearing. Then Kirtan, Shravanam Kirtanam. So Kirtanam Mahaprabhu exemplified throughout Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, that how Mahaprabhu at night would have Kirtan with Srivas Thakur, how Mahaprabhu, anything you see, there is Kirtan. There is a festival of mangoes, is Kirtan. Um, Anywhere, everywhere, you see when Srivas Thakur's son left the body, there's Kirtan. Anywhere, any festival, Panihati festival, there is Kirtan. Mahaprabhu took sannyas, there is Kirtan. Everywhere there is Kirtan. Chandkasi pastime, there is Kirtan. Raghunadas Goswami Panihati festival, there is Kirtan. Everywhere there is Kirtan. So Kirtanam. And the third, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam, meditation. This is also very wonderful, that how Narshimananda Brahmachari, he actually mentally constructed a pathway for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with so many wonderful flowers and very, very wonderful pathway. And Mahaprabhu, by because of his devotion, Mahaprabhu only went up till that point, that he actually mentally constructed that pathway, and then Mahaprabhu came back, Smarana. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, deity worship. You see Raghav Pandit, how Raghav Pandit was so exaltedly performing his deity worship, that Krishna himself, sometimes you would see Krishna eating the bhoga that he offered, and we know that how much he was so careful that when the coconuts touched the dust from the ceiling, Raghav Pandit personally made sure that the devotees, his servant, went and got fresh coconuts from far, far away. Archanam, Vandanam, offering prayer. This we see all the Mahaprabhu constantly offering prayer. Mahaprabhu, when he sees Jagannath, when he sees Lord Nrsimhadev, when he so many wonderful, wonderful, wonderful pastimes, Mahaprabhu is constantly offering prayers. Devotees constantly offering prayer. Now, this is very, very astonishing, because when devotees meet, any devotees are meeting, any two devotees are meeting in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Like, for example, Mahaprabhu asked Pradyumna Mishra to go and hear from Ramananda Roy. And if you read the conversation, that it's like a prayer actually. They're speaking, but it's like a prayer between devotees. So they have so much respect, so much love for each devotee has for another devotee, and that's why Krishna manifests. I mean, what to speak of speaking about Lord Krishna and his pastimes, but just alone interaction between devotees is so high class, such an exalted platform, that attracts Krishna's mercy, that attracts Krishna's presence. So that's the point I wanted to come to, that Mahaprabhu's pastimes, the key thing is how devotees interact with each other. Devotees pay obeisances, devotees, the way they submit their requests. So the same way we go before the Lord, we pay obeisances, and we don't talk to the Lord, right? We don't say, how are you doing? What would you like to eat? No, we have specific prayers. So in the same way, if we are in that mood of interacting with devotees with great respect, then in the same way, that respect will reflect in our practices of devotional service. Because the more and more we respect, the more and more we have great awe and not just awe and reverence, but very high value. And basically, we're very grateful. The more devotional service, like a lotus flower, opens up and reveals its glory. So, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, servitorship. This we see glorified throughout Chaitanya Charitamrita. Actually, I was just remembering that when Mahaprabhu, I can't remember when, Mahaprabhu came back to Jagannath Puri, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is introducing all the devotees to Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu, this devotee does service, this devotee does that service. And I was just reflecting that each devotee is doing one seva, just one service. That's it. That's what describes Chaitanya Charitamrita. And while reading that, I became so happy and became so inspired that one service that they do, it's so valuable. It's so valuable. And Chaitanya Charitamrita says that we have no idea of how glorious, how amazing, how exalted, how valuable is this word servant. To be a servant of the Vaishnavas is such an exalted position. So Chaitanya Charitamrita glorifies. That's why Chaitanya Charitamrita glorifies Bhakta Pada Doli or Bhakta Pada Jal, Bhakta Bhukta Avashesha Tina Mahabal. So that much faith uh, is there in the devotees, amongst the devotees. And that's why uh, we can see how in Chaitanya Charitamrita that love of God is constantly discussed, constantly propagated, constantly shared among devotees. And that's why Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur said that by reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, if you don't have any association of devotees, unfortunately, if someone is in that predicament, you can get the best inspiration and association, because Chaitanya Charitamrita is ultimately about loving dealings between devotees. Sakhyam Atma Nivedanam. So this servitorship between devotees will ultimately result in friendship, in close friendships. And when we first develop very high regard and very humble demeanor towards devotees, then we develop a deep friendship. But it's very important to remember that although the friendship may develop, the respect should never go away. The respect should always be there. So that loving friendship and intimacy will develop. So what is the result of that intimacy? Rupa Goswami says something very wonderful in Upadeshamrita. Our acharyas have commented on that, about how to overcome the desire for name and fame. So Rupa Goswami says the way to overcome the desire for name and fame is to have loving interactions with devotees. When you have loving interaction with devotees in a close, intimate devotees, then the loving reciprocation you get from devotees, it actually gets rid of the need to actually get name and fame. Because why we want name and fame? I mean, why do I want name and fame? Why am I so disgusting? Because um, we have, as spirit souls, we have a desire for loving reciprocation. And because we're not getting that from Krishna, one is not getting that from Krishna, therefore he seeks that form of name and fame. So he thinks that by name and fame, I will get some loving reciprocation. But Rupa Goswami says, by developing deep friendship with devotees and discussing Krishna's glories in a very personal and very intimate way, that desire is fulfilled. And ultimately, Atma Nivedana. So by following this process, one can actually dedicate oneself fully to the service of the Lord, where one feels that by gaining a little experience, anubhava, or realization, there is no greater gain. By glorifying the activities of a devotee, by seeing how Krishna has reciprocated with a devotee, there is no greater gain. Like we glorify, wow, such an amazing dressing, such a wonderful kirtan. And if we are able to be there at that moment, we're actually be able to present and actually glorify and feel and experience, then that gives so much joy to the heart. And that makes us want to surrender to the service of the Lord. So this is the glory of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. So to get the mercy of Radharani, to get the mercy of Krishna is actually a very high thing, very high thing. And only in a pure heart can we actually collect Radharani's mercy. So in order to purify our heart so that we can actually collect Radharani's mercy, we have to become attached to Lord Chaitanya and his associates. So more and more we become attached to Lord Chaitanya and their associates, and not just become attached, but very, very scrutinizingly scrutinizingly observe their mood, the mood of their dealing, then we can actually worship them. We can imbibe that same mood in our life. And by their causeless mercy, we can get their mood and get their association and inspiration. So, yes, death is true. Death may happen at any time, and it's a very dangerous position. But we have to be positively motivated. Unless we're positively motivated, unless we're positively motivated to take the association of devotees of the Lord, inspiration, dedication will not last a long time. So, uh, like I began my discussion speaking about the importance of scientifically knowing. So that's why it's very important for us to study the books of Srila Prabhupada. I have actually studied the lives of many great devotees in our movement, and I have not found one devotee in our movement who has not thoroughly studied Prabhupada books. Not one devotee who has actually gone back to God or is a pure devotee. So Prabhupada books are like irreplaceable, are very powerful. Uh, so we have to study them. We have to understand. Like many times we gloss over, but we have to understand what Prabhupada is saying. So that can only come by studying on a regular basis, by reading on a regular basis. That's irreplaceable. Although just by it's true that without service, just by reading, it's not enough. But at the same time, uh, service without reading also is incomplete, because only by study do we actually recognize the value of what we are dealing in our hand, what we have in our hand, and we have no idea actually how to approach the subtle aspects of um, approaching the lotus feet of Krishna, approaching this society. It's all based on our perspective, and small things that we don't do or we don't remember, it makes a huge difference in our perspective. Huge difference. Because like his great Shiva Prabhu said yesterday so nicely, Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardana. He is looking at the bhav, at the mood. So in order to keep our mood in check, we need uh, small, basically we need the finer aspects of devotional service. Those finer aspects we cannot expect uh, that some devotee has to sit down and speak to us. But when we read Prabhupada purports very scrutinizingly, we get this information. We get this information. So, of course, we have seen so many people leaving the body, and we know we will leave the body also. And we don't know in what condition we will leave the body. But one thing for sure, we know we can focus, we can draw great inspiration that Krishna is a very grateful person, Supreme Lord, but he's very grateful. Therefore, instead of waiting or instead of worrying about death, only death, will I go back to God and all these things, it's better to invest our time here and now in trying to do the best we can, try to do our level best to please Krishna. And of course, mainly to please Krishna's devotees. So, as soon as we see devotees with a material perspective, immediately we should understand that our consciousness is not good. Our consciousness is falling down. As soon as we see devotees from material perspective, as soon as the mind says, yeah, this devotee has ego. This devotee speaks so arrogantly. I mean, as soon as the thought will come in the mind, immediately, oh, this devotee is in mode of passion. Immediately, we should know that our consciousness is not good. And so we have to rectify our consciousness by this process of hearing and chanting. By chanting with a longing mood, with a dependent mood, with the mode of taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, and by hearing in detail about the activities of devotees. Actually, Srila Prabhupada's purports are how Prabhupada will approach all these situations. Like, this is time of death, a time when a person is leaving the body. So how is Prabhupada approaching this situation? Like Prabhupada is saying, basically, if I were in that situation, what will be my perspective? So like that, every purport is like that. This is Prabhupada's perspective on death, Prabhupada's perspective on old age, Prabhupada's perspective on everything. So that means how would Prabhupada act in that situation? How would Prabhupada think in that situation? And so by reading and absorbing that, we know how we should think and we should act in that situation. So that's why there is no replacement to reading Prabhupada's books. Yes, we can hear proper lectures. We should hear lectures of pure devotees or pure devotees. But the guidance uh, in our spiritual life is coming from reading Prabhupada purports, and how much we're able to realize, how much we're able to understand, how much we're actually able to absorb from the purports. So that's why reading Prabhupada's books is irreplaceable. And that's why Prabhupada said, these are my law books for the next 10,000 years. And Prabhupada is fully present in his purports. One devotee, Syama Prabhu Chapati, has told me that different, like many times we quote Prabhupada conversations. He said conversations have certain level of relevance, like they're relevant to the situation. Lectures Prabhupada gave also relevant to the situation, but he says purports are ultimate. Anything Prabhupada writes in purports is like stamped. There is no, question of, here and there or. So that's why Prabhupada purports are very, very important. Like even the translation, sometimes in Bhagavatam we read so many things, but you see in Prabhupada purports, it's very, very, very clear at what we should do, how we should do. So if we just develop this mentality, this habit, this nature of always appreciating devotees, glorifying devotees, um, having this mood of taking their association, becoming inspired by their example, that will help us so much in our devotional service. That will help us to cultivate all the wonderful qualities, and we will 100% be successful. 100%. There's no doubt about it. So that's why Mahaprabhu says that if you do these two things, Nam Sankirtan and Vaishnav Seva, Achirat Pave Krishnera Charan. I can't remember exactly, but very quickly you will attain the lotus feet of Krishna if you do these two things, that engage in the chanting of the holy names in the congregation of devotees and serve devotees, serve Vaishnav Seva. So yeah, it's very, very wonderful to read Chaitanya Charitamrita with that perspective, to see how devotees are in, what is the quality of their interaction, what they're discussing, how they're speaking, and how we can apply that in our life also. That will make a huge difference in our Krishna consciousness, huge difference. Like whether when we speak to someone, whether we want Krishna to speak through them to us, or we just want to have a material conversation between two bodies, two egos, two minds. Like what level do we want to actually interact? So that's up to us. And that's why Chaitanya Charitamrita is actually, or Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita is the most important. Why? Because Apani Achari Prabhu, Apani Achari, Mahaprabhu is teaching not only by his own example, but by the example of all his devotees. All his devotees are teaching how to behave, how to live in this world, and how to make our life perfect. So, but I can speak on this verse. I mean, already I've spoken so many days about how death is such a dangerous condition and we should become very inspired. And yes, that's very important. But
at the same time, we should focus on the positive that we have such wonderful association of devotees. Otherwise, if we only look at the negative, either we will become distracted or depressed, or ultimately, you know, negative inspiration, negative drive doesn't really last for long, right? Like we tell so many people, no many people know also, and they may say, oh, if you don't go to the temple, you'll go to hell, you'll go to hell. But how often do you see such people coming to the temple and engaging in devotional service? So Krishna does not like fearing service. Krishna likes loving service. So yeah, we have to have the positive perspective, the inspiring perspective that's our movement, right? Nityananda Prabhu's mood that this person may be so unqualified, but how much ever dark he may be, how much ever he may be sinful, but his future is extremely bright. So unless we have this perspective, how can we in our personal devotional life be inspired to carry on the practice of devotional service? In our personal life, if we, become very negative, then, any small fall down or any small thing will just depress us. But, we have to be driven in a positive way. And then we can also see other devotees in that light also. And ultimately, that's a real thing. See, everyone in this world is looking for someone who empathizes with them. Empathy, the real empathy comes when we actually see the spark of their Krishna consciousness and fan that spark. So unless people see that we're fanning that spark, they won't listen to us. So this is not just something we have to say, but something, I mean, it can be artificially cultivated, speak for myself. But then when they see us deeply appreciating them and deeply wanting their welfare, and that again, that's subject to level of consciousness, uh, that appreciating what they can be for Krishna, what they can be for Srila Prabhupada, like in a very deep way, trying to appreciate that or fan that spark. When we have that very deep appreciation, then that's what is going to ultimately lead to the growth of this movement. And not just the growth of this movement, but keep people inspired in this movement. Because even if after people come, if they don't feel inspired, then they'll feel like, why should I stay here? Why should I come to the temple? It's just like, looks like a very regimental, very rigorous, very kind of, military program. Nobody wants to be in a military program. Everyone only wants some inspiration, some positive thing. So yeah, that's the Prabhu is always personifying that because it's super exalted consciousness. But yeah, this is just my little takeaway from this verse. Anyone has any question or comment? Or you want to add anything?
Yes.
Online, anyone has any question or comment? Correction? Okay.
So one thing I want to share and ask. You said we should see all the devotees when we see them, not with any uh, material lens. Like, okay, we look to him, we say, oh, he's like this, he's like that. But there should be a discrimination also, right?
Yeah.
When we're interacting with, so how do you kind of reconcile and use the discrimination and not becoming taking them into because not we cannot treat everyone the same way. Right? We also have to have a discrimination with Vivek Buddhi, right? What we call it, Vivek. Like how do you engage that when we are interacting?
Yeah. Yeah, bro. So yeah, this uh, discrimination is very important. Uh, but what I'm trying to say is that respect should be given to everyone. But that respect cannot come unless we are in, I mean, our mind is positive. Unless we feel inspired in Krishna consciousness genuinely, we cannot respect others.
Mm.
It will be mechanical. So we may not associate with everyone. Of course, we should make discrimination. We should make very strict discrimination of who we want to associate. But at the same time, we can appreciate. That's my point. So, like I said, na, that in the close, intimate, trusted, exalted, serious Sangha, we can have discussions about the Lord, and that can nourish our heart. That's separate, right? For association, we have to make discrimination. But then when we speak about the way we see devotees, of course, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, all the devotees are super exalted. That's the point. And of course, all devotees may not be on that level. That's that's given. But my point is that we should appreciate devotees. Like, I mean, I don't apply this, but Shastra says that the first offense to a devotee, if you see a devotee, you don't become happy, that's an offense. So, yeah, that's the first offense. I mean, you see a devotee, you don't become happy. It's like, who is? So, yeah, so the thing is that these small things adds up and adds up and adds up, builds up. This is what destroys our taste in bhakti actually. This view, this critical view that I mean, I'm, in that respect, I'm very, very, very fallen. Critical view that basically looking to find fault. I mean, it's like, I know for myself, when that view is there, and you see someone, you see something, and then you're like, Krishna transcendently inspires to see the fault, and then you blow up that fault, like you did this, you did that. So you know that, right? So that's the point. So that's what destroys our bhakti. See, mostly we have association, we have shastra, we have chanting, we have all the things. But where we are, I speak for myself, where we're missing out, really missing out, is this eagerness, this inspiration to practice devotional service. Where does that eagerness get destroyed? By crooked mentality. So where does the original crooked mentality after coming to bhakti is what? Lack of appreciation of devotees. Like, I'll just say one last thing. I was meditating on last few days about Madhai Ghat. We scored so many times after Madhai was delivered by Lord Chaitanya. How Madhai, Jagai and Madhai, they built a ghat, and they were so humble. They serve all the devotees and they repent their previous activities. So one thing I learned from that is how they were so appreciative of devotees. They had so much appreciation for devotees, and that actually, simplicity is what attracts Krishna's mercy. I'm not simple. I'm very duplicitous. I'm very crooked and fallen. But someone who is simple, yeah, that person, and the simplicity become destroyed by these small things, small, kind of views. That's the way it's like slowly. You see this devotee. Oh, this devotee is like this, and then you start speaking. And you may not even speak in a very open way. You may speak in a very covered way because you don't want to commit offense, right? But then still that little crookedness destroys the eagerness by speaking. And then, then we start chanting and you're like, what's going on? So speaking for myself, it's like, you know, you know. Sorry for saying this, but it's just my personal realization. When nobody else has any question or comment, all I will end here. Panchakalpatarubhishya kripa sindhu bevacha paitanam pavane Ananta Koti Vaishnavi